We're coming to you from the DraftKings.com podcasting studios. DraftKings.com, America's one-day fantasy sports site, where it's like a new season every time you play. DraftKings.com.
From ESPN's Pod Center, this is NBA Lockdown.
Welcome into the latest NBA Lockdown podcast. We're taping this on Wednesday, April 29th. As you very well know now, we're doing every day in the postseason. I am Doug Kezirian. Coming up in moments, we'll be joined by Steve Mason, hosts radio on ESPN Los Angeles. Talk about the Clippers and Spurs, another epic game. And we'll also talk to Tim MacMahon of ESPNDallas.com. Tim covers the Mavericks. Their season is over. We'll get his perspective on what exactly went wrong, particularly with Rajon Rondo. Also look ahead to what should be a very busy offseason. And also, how good are the Rockets? Are we sleeping on this team even though they're the 2 seed in the competitive Western Conference? And does Oklahoma City have its new coach? Kevin Durant, is he on board? We'll talk to Royce Young, who covers the Thunder for ESPN. So a lot of intrigue there because of not just Durant being a free agent next summer, but also Russell Westbrook in 2 summers. But first, let's recap an epic Game 5 between the Clippers and Spurs. It came down to what could have been an alley-oop. Instead, it was a Blake Griffin floater, and DeAndre Jordan commits offensive goaltending. Here are the 2 big men for the Clippers, starting with Blake Griffin.
The last play, I thought it was going in. I don't know if I couldn't tell if DJ touched it or not. Obviously, that was the call, but I don't know. I thought it was good.
Just dumbass play. I hit the ball. We did a good job fighting, to put us in a situation to go up 1, and it was you can't blame anybody for that but me. I tipped the ball, I hit it, so like I said, that's on me.
All right, time now to welcome in Steve Mason, radio host for ESPN Los Angeles. Steve, look, we knew this would be the best first-round playoff series. We had a feeling it might go 6 or 7. Clippers and Spurs have lived up to the hype, but another heartbreaker last night for the Clip joint.
Yeah, I mean, 3 of these 4 games have been phenomenal. The one game, of course, Clippers got blown out at San Antonio, but this has been chess in the final couple of minutes of the game. And I thought last night was the best game of the series. I mean, that final minute and a half was just incredible. And the Clippers, it was one they needed, and it was one they didn't get.
But that's sort of been the underlying theme with the Clippers in the last few postseasons. They've made the right moves to get superstars. We'll talk about, Doc and his bench moves aside. But, they're here. They want to be the new team in L.A. And, yes, they got a bad draw by getting the Spurs in the first round. But, look, they should have won 2 of these 3 close games. I
mean, it's a brand-new owner. The Sterling thing is now in the rearview mirror. They are being promoted, have been promoted all year long. The slogan here is relentless. The Lakers have been non-existent in terms of public consciousness. This was a really big series for the Clippers. They've never been past the second round. This year may not get out of the first round. And, I think that you can have superstars, but they've got to perform when the lights are brightest. And this team has fallen apart when it counts in fourth quarters. Last night, Clippers missed all 3 of their 3-pointers in the fourth quarter. They missed 4 of their 7 free throws. They committed 5 turnovers. Griffin, 1 of 9 shooting with 3 turnovers and 2 missed free throws in the final quarter. Of course, he had that ball blocked by Duncan, which may have been the play of the game. Ball stolen with the Clippers trailing by 2 in the final 2 minutes. I mean, that is the moment. Are the Clippers big enough to play in the biggest moments? And last night, they really shrunk from that pressure in their own building.
Yeah, as a Laker fan, I've sort of like it because people in L.A. can sort of appreciate what the Lakers have done. Hey, it's not that easy to win championships. Clippers think they're in the mix, but then they're really not. But I also just kind of root for the Clippers because they're a likable team, and I got nothing against the Clips. But going back to this game, you mentioned all the poor three-point shooting, the missed free throws, DeAndre Jordan taking the blame for the end of the game. Earlier in the series, Blake Griffin dribbling out of bounds in a game they could have won. That was game 2. Here's Doc talking about the officiating.
Guys, I don't complain much. I thought we got some really tough calls tonight, some brutal calls. You know, the travel on Blake, the goaltend on Matt, which wasn't a goaltend. You know, you think about the playoffs and their single possession games. Those possessions, those were crucial. The foul that got them the basket, got them up. JJ didn't touch anyone, you know, and so it's not why we lost, but those were big plays.
Steve, I agree with Doc in terms of those single plays, those few single plays that he mentioned, but it's kind of laughable saying I don't complain much.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I don't complain much, I guess, while I'm complaining, is essentially what Doc is doing. And, you know, that, for me, it did not have to it. I mean, what's the expression? Ifs and nuts are like candy. Was it ifs and buts are like candy and nuts? Everybody's got them. You know, there were a lot of questionable calls throughout the series, particularly down the stretch. But at the same time, you know, there was no question DeAndre Jordan, that was goaltending. And, you know, that was a huge basket. And I think it may have still gone in if he hadn't touched it. I mean, that was a huge moment. And when you went back and looked at it, in the moment of the game, that was a great call by those officials. And once that call was made, it was absolutely clear it was right. Yes, there were questionable calls. No, that's not what determined the game. What determined the game was how the Clippers played down the stretch, how they took a tie game and, you know, with all the momentum and home court, and they were not able to complete a victory there. It was about not dealing with the pressure. It was about not rising to the moment, and the officiating had nothing to do with that.
Totally agree. I still can't believe some of Blake's bunny layups didn't go in. They rattled in and out, and then Tim Duncan had some great plays. But on that final possession for the Clippers, why didn't Blake alley-oop it to DeAndre Jordan?
You know, it was right there. These guys do it all year long. They did it earlier in the game. That alley-oop, I mean, DJ is right there, the alley-oop. And, you know, Griffin throws up that sort of off-balance thing. Much easier, I think, at that point, and DJ had to be ready for the alley-oop. I almost wonder if that's not why the goaltending happened. He may have been looking for the alley-oop and was right there and in the air, so he tapped that ball instead of sitting back for the rebound. That alley-oop is there all year long for the Clippers. Have no idea why it wasn't there on that play.
Yeah, and Tony Parker was guarding DJ, so if you could pick one player on the court, if you're the Clippers that you want guarding DJ, he's not going to get his fingertips on an alley-oop. And it is second nature. That's the thing. It wouldn't have been a random play. It wouldn't have been too fancy if somehow the lob went awry. But either way, Clippers lose what I thought would be a must-win. But here we are. The series isn't over. You've been around this Clippers team all season. You've seen this series evolve. What's your gut tell you about whether or not this series is over heading back to San Antonio?
My gut says it's Spurs. My gut says it's over Spurs and six. And I think this is back to how do you play when the moments are big. You know, I always thought this series was there for the Clippers to lose. And I think they've lost the series. And I think it is because, you know, they are not at the point. They've got great stars. They've got an exciting team. But they're not at the point where they are ready to just take a series away. And these are the defending champs. I don't think they have as much talent. I don't think that they are as good as the Clippers. But, man, they are smart. Man, they are crafty. And, man, they are not going to blow Game 6.
Behind closed walls, what do the Clippers think about the hack-a-dray when other teams, particularly the Spurs, implement it?
I think they are unbelievably frustrated. You know, you can see the looks on Clippers' faces when the strategy is employed. And by the way, in this series, it has worked more than it has not. I think they are frustrated. I think they know it takes them out of their offensive rhythm. I think they know it gives an older Spurs team a chance to get a little blow. I mean, they love DeAndre Jordan, but I think there is a collective eye roll thinking, hey, this isn't real basketball. This isn't the way the game is meant to be played. This isn't a scenario where we get to use our athleticism. They're frustrated. They don't like it. They know it embarrasses Andre, but they are going to have to deal with it because I am certain we're going to see it in Game 6.
I totally agree with you. I think Adam Silver has said that he plans to address it this summer. Even Popovich has said he doesn't like it, but rules are rules. It's a better strategy and gives his team a better chance to win. And I also agree Clips are done in Game 6 because I just think those starters are running to the ground. The deeper bench is helping the Spurs as the series evolves, which is kind of crazy given that you would perceive them as older. Steve, I appreciate it. Always love listening to you when I'm home in Los Angeles. Great job on the radio, and look forward to another appearance here on the NBA Lockdown podcast.
Awesome, man. I appreciate it.
All right, so Mace thinks the Clippers season will end in Texas. The Mavericks season did end last night, also in Texas, but in Houston. For now, we welcome in Tim MacMahon, who covers the Mavericks of ESPNDallas.com. All right, Tim, a lot of layers to this series. And you've written about Rajon Rondo. We'll get to that in a moment. But I got to be honest, a lot of our NBA analysts thought the Mavs are sort of a chic pick to upset the Rockets, and this was as one side of a series as maybe a 5-game series could be. What was your take on this series?
Well, I would say any realistic hope that the Mavericks had of upsetting the Rockets or maybe even making this a competitive series went out the window when Chandler Parsons had to be shut down for the season. You know, he's going to have knee surgery, probably microfracture surgery on that right knee. And, I mean, that was their major free agent signing last year. Obviously, there was, an interesting element in him going back to Houston for this series. But they needed Parsons to be great in this series, and he played one game. Wasn't very good in that game. The knee just wasn't cooperating. And this team really didn't have a shot to beat the Rockets without Parsons playing at a high level, much less playing at all.
There are a lot of lineup rotations with the Parsons injury. Even Devin Harris was nicked up at the beginning of the series, and then, of course, the Rajon Rondo. Why was it so difficult for Rick Carlisle to find the right matchups and the right pieces to fit together?
Well, obviously the injuries were a major factor there. With Rondo, it's just they made a trade that they thought was worth the risk, understanding that it might not be a perfect fit, probably wouldn't be a perfect fit, and basically they threw Rondo on Carlisle's plate and said, hey, figure out how to make this work, and it just wasn't going to work. And so that really completely screwed up the rhythm and the flow of this team, and in a lot of regards, the chemistry. And it got to the point where after Game 2, when Rondo certainly didn't look like he wanted to be out there and Carlisle didn't want him out there, they essentially came to a mutual decision. Let's just move on. Clean break, come up with some silly back injury story to try to help Rondo save face. But when your midseason blockbuster trade acquisition ends up essentially getting dismissed from the team after 2 playoff games, I think you're going to have some lineup issues, and then throw on the $46 million small forward getting hurt.
So they threw the Hail Mary midseason with Rondo. It fell incomplete. Why exactly did this Rondo thing not pan out? You've talked to all these guys. You know what's going on. Why didn't it work out?
I just don't think he's that good of a player anymore, and certainly not a good fit in Rick Carlisle's system. I mean, he really screwed up the spacing because of his inability to shoot a jump shot. When you look at the teams that he had great success with in Boston, those were teams where he was surrounded by shooters, and in Ray Allen, one of the best off-the-move shooters in NBA history. I'd rank him right up there with Reggie Miller. The Mavericks don't have that guy. Rondo and Monte Ellis's games did not mesh. And then Rondo he didn't embrace the pace that Carlisle wanted him to play with. And, people talk so much about the play call and the play call and the play call, and that kind of being the source of the friction. Rick Carlisle doesn't want to call plays. He wants the point guard to push the ball, to play flow basketball, not to have to call set plays. But when a guy was walking it up the floor and not playing at that pace, he's forced to call plays. guys. And so it was just, there was philosophical differences, and it just didn't fit because, Rondo's inability to shoot, he's just not the same player he was before he had that knee injury. He's no longer a dominant athlete.
It's too bad on top of that because the Mavericks could have really used Jay Crowder and even Brandon Wright for that matter. So moving ahead to the summer, Rick Carlisle explicitly said it, Rajon Rondo's not coming back to Dallas, no shocker. But this Mavericks roster could really be looking at a giant overhaul. I imagine LaMarcus Aldridge will be on their radar. What do you anticipate happening with this roster?
Well, it's another summer where the roster is going to be completely turned over just about. I mean, that'll make 4 straight summers, and that's obviously not a situation that's ideal for a coach and for a franchise, but they have not found the combination that's worth committing to. And so the major, like you said, the Rondo question, there's no question. There's an exclamation point. He's gone. The major question marks as far as the guys who will be free agents for the Mavericks are, do you keep Monte Ellis? Do you keep Tyson Chandler? In Monte Ellis' case, it's a pretty complicated decision because he's a guy who's hard to deal with. I mean, and it comes down to if you're going to be high maintenance, you better be worth the headaches, and so that's something they've got to really look at. He turns 30 next year. Is a 30-year-old, one-dimensional, undersized shooting guard worth paying the kind of money that they'd have to pay Ellis to keep him happy? And basically, they'd have to pay him Chandler Parsons type of money to keep Ellis happy. So they've got to decide that. And then with Tyson, basically, can they upgrade? They're not going to let him go just on the hope of signing another big man like they did 4 years ago. But can they upgrade? And obviously, LaMarcus Aldridge he's not a true center. He is a guy who Mavericks have interest in. There's been a lot of talk about him coming back to Dallas, where he's from. DeAndre Jordan, though, I know for a fact, is interested in coming to Dallas, and there's certainly some mutual interest there.
Yeah, he's a Texas native as well. You've covered the NBA for a long time. This Rockets team sort of underrated and even under the radar, even despite being a 2 seed entering the postseason and having a potential MVP on their roster. Rockets are on to the next round, await the Spurs and Clippers winner. What do you think the ceiling is of this Rockets team now that you've seen them up close in the postseason?
Well, if Dwight Howard can continue playing the way he did in this series, then you have to respect the Rockets as a legitimate contender because, as you mentioned, James Harden, certainly an MVP candidate, and Dwight Howard looked like that all-NBA type of big man that obviously everybody expected him to be when the Rockets beat out the Mavericks and some other teams to sign him a couple summers ago. So the fact they won 56 games with Dwight dealing with knee injuries and missing most of the regular season is pretty impressive. You put him in the mix, and he's out there putting up monster double-doubles, blocking shots, dominating the glass, dominating the paint. They're a threat. Having said all that, I don't think they're better than either the Spurs or the Clippers. So I think they'll be a really tough out, but I do think they'll be done after the second round.
Why has Josh Smith all of a sudden been productive?
You know what? I think it's just a better fit for him. And, they kind of deal with, they give him the freedom to shoot the jumpers, but they put him in situations where they're really playing to his strengths. And I thought one of the best coaching moves of the series was at the end of Game 2 where they put the ball in Josh Smith's hands and attacked Dirk with Smith as a pick-and-roll ball handler. And the Smith-Howard combo just killed the Mavericks. I think that Mikhail, who's done, I think, an underrated job coaching the Rockets this year, I think he finished 5th in Coach of the Year, certainly deserve consideration. I think he's done a great job of kind of figuring out what Josh Smith does best and putting him in those kind of positions to take advantage of those skills.
Yeah, I agree with you in that Game 2. Clutch City went to Lob City, had all those dunks, and, when the higher seed wins the first 2 games, it's really tough for the lower seed. Mavericks next year, obviously a lot depends on the roster overhaul, but, is this team going up or is this team going down next year?
Well, I can't answer that. Ask me that on about July 10th or July 14th because I've got to see what shakes out this summer. I've got to see, can they get a big-name guy in free agency? How do they fill out the rest of the roster? I have no idea on 3 positions in the starting lineup, much less most of the bench right now. But clearly there's cause for concern. Chandler Parsons How much time is he going to miss to start next season if he does have to have that microfracture surgery? Dirk will be 37 next year. And, those are the two starters that will be back. And then, what can they put around him? So, gun to my head, I would say this thing's going in the wrong direction. But let's see what they can salvage this summer.
Sounds good. That is the voice of Tim MacMahon, ESPN Dallas, covers the Mavericks. Tim, appreciate your time here on the NBA Lockdown podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Still ahead, rumors have been swirling about OKC's coaching vacancy for a little bit now, but it seems like the picture may be getting a little clearer. We'll talk about that in 1 minute on the NBA Lockdown podcast.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Back with you on the NBA Lockdown podcast. I'm Doug Kezirian, and we are joined now by Royce Young, who covers the Oklahoma City Thunder for ESPN and ESPN.com. Obviously, we know Scott Brooks has been relieved of his duties after 7 years with the Thunder. A lot of rumors swirling. We found out Kevin Ollie not in the mix. I thought personally that would be the best fit for this Thunder squad. And Royce, what's the latest here with all these Billy Donovan rumors?
Yeah, Mark Stein reported it late last night that the Thunder have opened up discussions with Billy Donovan. And really, since the very beginning, a lot of people felt like around the league, as soon as Scott Brooks, like you said, Doug, was relieved of his duties, that Billy Donovan was the front runner because he's got a strong relationship with Sam Presti previously. Presti's hired two of Donovan's former staffers, Mark Deschanel, who is the Thunder's D-League coach right now, and then Oliver Winterbone, who was on Billy Donovan's staff, and he's a video analyst now for the Thunder. So, there's obviously some synergy there, some prior connections, and then Presti and Donovan have known each other for a long time. And obviously it's the type of thing where it's, you're taking a gamble because people are going to label it as, a college to NBA jump. There's a lot of unknowns, but quite frankly, there's a lot of unknowns no matter who you hire. It's about, the guy coming in being able to basically connect with Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and Billy Donovan's got a strong track record of being able to build strong relationships with players. So I think the Thunder have kind of viewed this as Billy Donovan has always been their top option. I think that when Presti fired Scott Brooks, that he had Billy Donovan in mind, and basically I think it's a yes or no thing.
Okay, so let's just digest this. If Billy Donovan's the next coach, now I know the Oklahoma City front office, if you had to pick one or the other, they operate in a vacuum, kind of an insulated bubble. They make trades. They're pretty shrewd, so they don't really care. But how is this going over right now with the Thunder fans?
I'd say that the reaction has been mixed, Doug, quite honestly. And I think it's for some of the reasons I just said that, I think people have it in their heads that, with the position this team is in, that, it's next season or bust. And that's kind of the perspective a lot of Thunder fans have taken is because, there's so much pressure on next season based on, what happened this past year. And then plus, obviously, it's the last guaranteed year you have Kevin Durant. So, people are seeing it as you're really going to gamble on Billy Donovan. But, like you said, Doug, the Thunder don't really operate that way, and they can't operate that way. That's just not their culture. Is that they're not seeing this as a one-year hire. They don't see Billy Donovan as some sort of mercenary to come in and try to win this championship, and then then they can reevaluate after that. They see him as their next long-term coach and somebody to try to elevate the organization and take them to a better place with Scott Brooks. Scott Brooks took them this far. They want the next coach, whoever that is, Billy Donovan or whoever, to take them to another level. But I still think fans are going to be skeptical just because Donovan is a college coach, and the NBA has a lot of busts that came from college. Mike Montgomery, Rick Pitino. You can go down the line, college coaches that just haven't worked out, and I think that kind of concerns people.
And I don't know if this is factoring in, but he did become the Orlando Magic coach for a few minutes and then went back. So I don't know, maybe that's in the back of their minds. Look, the number one thing is next year Thunder compete for NBA championship, and then also Kevin Durant impending free agency. What needs to happen whether it be off the court or on the court, for Kevin Durant to re-up with OKC?
I think a lot of people have kind of tried to label this as it's title or nothing for the Thunder, that if you don't win a championship with Kevin Durant, he's going to leave you. But, I think obviously if the Thunder go and win a title, that's going to be a nice little feather in their cap when they sit down and start discussing his contract. But I think for Durant, a lot of it is he's going to have to be completely convinced of the direction of the organization, whichever one he signs with, that he can feel comfortable with, that it's not about the previous 5 years. It's going to be about the next 5 years and how many championships can he win over the next 5 years. And, if he had won one in Oklahoma City, then that will obviously be something that's proven to him. It can be done here. I can win one with Russell Westbrook, and I can win one with a new coach, whoever that might be. But for him, it's going to be about, does he like the direction things are going? And I think that's one of the reasons that Presti made the move with Scott Brooks when he did, was to give Durant the opportunity to just try to build a relationship and buy in to whatever this new coach is selling, instead of waiting till after the season, seeing how it played out, and then kind of making what would have been seen as a panic move then, and then trying to kind of convince Durant that, hey, you get to pick your own coach if you want to, if you'll resign. So I think that's why Presti made the move when he did.
What about the other personnel moves this summer? Is Enes Kanter coming back? How's this supporting cast going to look for Durant and Westbrook and also Ibaka?
I think it'll look mostly the same, quite honestly. And that's something Kevin Durant talked about at his a couple of weeks ago at his exit interviews, is that one of his biggest regrets of the season is he never got to play with Thunder's remade roster. And everybody could see kind of the rebuilt depth starting with Kanter and having that low post threat, a guy in the pick and roll that can be a legitimate option offensively. And Durant never got to play with him. And I think that was kind of something that really sticks with Durant and that he's really looking forward to next year. But, the Thunder did not trade for Enes Kanter without having the complete intention to keep him. And I think that, there may be a big offer sheet out there floating around. Somebody may be willing to throw Kanter major money. And it's going to mean the Thunder are going to break deep into the luxury tax, something that they've historically not done. But to me, I don't think there's any question that they're going to do what it takes to keep Enes Kanter, because they hold the leverage here. He's a restricted free agent. They can match any offer. And Kanter's been pretty adamant about enjoying his time in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, definitely not enjoying his time in Utah.
Right.
We also didn't see Kanter play alongside Ibaka much because Kanter's defense, pretty much looking like a traffic cone out there, but he didn't have the rim protector and Ibaka behind him, so that was a key variable as well. I got to ask, because I'm curious. I can't imagine many people don't wonder this, at least in the Oklahoma City fan base or even their front office, but what does Sam Presti and the rest of the front office think when they see James Harden have the season he had, maybe the MVP, and then also lead the Rockets in 5 games of the second round, and they could have had him for a few extra more million?
Yeah, I mean it's the type of thing, Doug, that Presti understands that no matter what happens, it's the trade that will never go away. And I know some people, Kevin Durant tried to tell Bill Simmons to let it go, and I can understand why people within the organization feel that way, but like you said, every time James Harden walks out on the court and does something spectacular, it's just, you can't help but wonder, that guy could be in a Thunder uniform right now. But I think that, honestly, the person that is least surprised by whatever James Harden is doing is Sam Presti. The Thunder knew what they had in James Harden. They saw him every day. They could see the developments that he was making. They saw him step up big in games. They saw him score, I think it was 16 straight points in the closeout game against the Mavericks in 2012.
Yeah,
they knew
right?
the player that that was the closeout game, and so they knew the player that they had. It's not like, I think everybody maybe has been, even Daryl Morey has admitted it, that Harden's maybe elevated a little bit past turning into a legit MVP candidate so soon. Maybe that's surprising some people, but for the Thunder, I'm sure that Presti is not excited to watch Houston Rocket basketball right now. But they're trying to say that they've completely moved on, and I think that they have. They've had great success without Harden this year, notwithstanding. But there's been some pretty good reasons why the Thunder have had some issues lately.
I will say, maybe it just takes a little more time, because All-Star Weekend, I kind of had forgotten it for a split second, and then I was watching the festivities on Saturday, not Sunday, whether it be the three-point shootout and dunk contest. And then I saw Westbrook and Harden hanging out together.
Right.
And I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. These guys were all good friends as teammates. So,
yep.
I mean, that's a big variable as well, is that they were so close, and this team is a really close, tight, fraternal nature.
Man, if they could have kept everybody together from who they drafted originally, you could also throw Jeff Green in there too. If they could have figured out a way to keep all. I mean, really what it is Presti just did too good of a job. I mean, these guys. He drafted these guys. He took some gambles on a few of them. Harden was a little bit of a reach at number 3 overall. Westbrook was a big reach at number 4 overall. And these guys kind of blew past what everybody thought that they were going to be, especially so quickly. So, what happened was that the money got complicated because Russell Westbrook was not supposed to be a max player, at least after that first rookie contract. James Harden was not supposed to be a max player after his first rookie contract. Everybody kind of had expectations Durant would do that, but even Serge Ibaka, 24th overall pick, he turns into a $48 million player. So, I think that really what it is it's Sam Presti's own fault. He just did too good of a job.
Yeah, great point. Great point. All right, that is going to always be attached to the Thunder until they maybe win a title without James Harden. Then maybe it would have been like, hey, this could have been a dynasty, so it'll never go away.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's never going away. If you win 2, it could have been 3,
Right. Yeah, as a Laker fan, I certainly know that because I'm spoiled with all the titles that Shaq and Kobe did win, the 3-peat, but you always wonder, hey, they could win 5, 6. That is Royce Young, covers the Thunder for ESPN, joining us here. Check him out on Twitter. Good follow, and obviously we'll keep a close eye on everything as this develops with the coaching search and coaching hire. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the NBA Lockdown Podcast. Thanks to Royce Young, Tim MacMahon, and also Steve Mason. I'm Doug Kezirian. We'll join you tomorrow, and who knows what's in store for tonight in the NBA playoffs.
Thanks for listening to NBA Lockdown on ESPN Radio. For more great podcasts, check out the Pod Center page on ESPNradio.com.